So have you guys ever wondered why humans have to be told what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat? Okay? The other people, they all seem to be pretty sorted. They know exactly what they are supposed to have. They certainly don't conduct CMEs like these discussing, अरे क्या खाना है, क्या अच्छा है, क्या बुरा है. They all seem to know what is to be done. So what is really wrong with us? Okay? So what has happened is we now eat for convenience, comfort and pleasure. We don't any longer eat for our survival. And that is why we are suffering and dying both from less as well as excess. So I'm here right now to talk with you about the right diet to not die yet. I thank Pan India for this opportunity, and I've done my retina fellowship right here from Ahmedabad in 2006 with Dr. Nagpal sir. So it's a very nice thing to be back here in Ahmedabad. And multiple diets are being promoted all over the world, right? You name it and there's a diet for that, with a lot of extremes on both sides. Somebody will say, "Arey, everything has to be animal-based," some will say everything has to be plant-based. And everyone says, mine is the best. I have this study, I have that study, and there are multiple studies being thrown around, and it's all becoming very confusing. Studies are a lot like bikinis. You know why? Because they reveal a lot, but they hide the essentials. Okay? And that is why today I'm not going to tell you about any nutrition studies that will tell why a whole food plant-based diet is beneficial. No. I'm not going to tell you that in diabetes, studies have shown that a plant-based diet lowers HbA1c and reduces the number of medications that are required, or that in cardiovascular disease, as has been told, it is known to reverse occlusion or even reduce the cardiovascular or mortality rate. No, I'm not going to tell you all these things. I'm not even going to tell you that in autoimmune diseases, they all have been linked to consumption of animal proteins, diseases like multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel diseases, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, or that for kidney disease, all animal products increase the acid load while plant products reduce the acid load. Or for cancer, processed meat are class 1 carcinogens, as bad as asbestos or smoking. Or red meat, which is unprocessed, is class 2A, which is as bad as other viruses infecting you. This is all of it. I'm not going to tell you all these things. I'm not even going to tell you that plant-based diets are in fact anti-cancer foods, right? And they are known to reduce risk of multiple types of cancers. When COVID-19 struck, those with plant-based diet had a 73% lower risk of getting moderate to severe COVID. I'm not even going to tell you that obesity, if you take a plant-based diet, you will reduce body weight, waist circumference, BMI, HbA1c, serum creatinine, even without limiting calories or mandating exercise. No, I'm not going to tell you any of this. But I'm going to ask you to think out of the box. Okay? And I'm not going to speak about nutritional studies, yet give you evidence as to which is the best diet for us. Now, 10,000 years ago, humans were hunter and gatherers, right? We used to live in the wild and we used to hunt for food and eat. Then we learned agriculture. And then what happened because of that? From whatever we could find, we started eating whatever we wished for. Now it was in our control, right? And agriculture can be either plant-based, where we consume or we grow plants for our consumption, or it could be animal agriculture, where we grow animals for their direct or indirect consumption. And those animals are known as livestock animals, and they give us meat, fish, eggs and milk. Now why do I say grow? Because they are artificially produced on this planet. Now let's look at 10,000 years ago, when there was no agriculture. There were no animals that were farmed. There was no livestock animals, right? If you remove the humans, all mammals on this planet were wild mammals. Look at land and water and everywhere, they were all wild, there were no livestock. Okay? Today, do you know what could be the percentage distribution? It was 100 to 0. Today, 20, 80, 20 will be wild. Anybody? You're close to that, but this is what has happened now. 94% is livestock. Okay, just all these, and I'm talking by weight, not even numbers. Imagine a blue whale, what size it is and how many cattle it will take to match that. Yet, the cattle, the pigs and the sheep outnumber the wild animals by this much amount. What about the birds? 71% are wild, chicken, and only 29% are wild. And what's wrong with all these animals? Isn't that the natural order of things? Well, in a natural pyramid, if you see, what are the characteristics? One, these are all naturally born. They all live in the wild. The prey has a fair chance to escape from the predator. Okay? And if the prey numbers start falling, the predator numbers will also start falling. So there's a natural balance which is maintained. Now what are we doing? We are breeding specific animals for our consumption. Okay? They all live in captivity. They are all artificially born and there is zero chance of escaping from us. So a pyramid, which we are told looks like this, where human is the apex predator, what is happening is our numbers are increasing, but we are producing our own food. Okay? So that natural order is no longer there. We ourselves are more than 8 billion on this planet. But every year, more than 100 billion animals are killed for our consumption. Okay? And what is happening? The natural resources which are there, we are not increasing those. So they are reducing. So the whole pyramid has become not unstable. And how much will this strain our resources? So today let me compare an animal diet and a plant diet with context to the resources that are available to us. If you compare the two, if you look at the water needed, on a meat diet it is 5 times more. The greenhouse gases emitted on a meat diet are 7 times more. Fossil fuel consumption is 11 times more. And the land needed to feed one person is 14 times more as compared to a plant-based diet. And where does all this land come from? It comes, as I speak, the Amazon forest, the size of 3 football fields, okay, is getting cut every single minute. I must have spoken for 5 minutes now. Already 15 football field size forests have been cut there. This is happening. And 91% of that is for animal feed. So animal agriculture is the biggest cause of deforestation. And deforestation leads to biodiversity loss. Because in that small area of that rainforest, there are thousands of species surviving. They all get destroyed. In fact, the current extinction rate is up to 10,000 times higher than what is expected in nature. So in nature, normally 3 species are expected to die every year. Currently, 3 species are dying every hour. That is how bad it is. We are in fact probably in the midst of the 6th mass extinction. The last one was when dinosaurs were wiped out. And currently we are wiping out multiple species on the planet. What about water? By 2050, 70% of the world's population will be living under water-stressed areas. And how do we save water? It comes up now and then on the papers everywhere, right? What can we do? We put special sensors. You know, we can use a mug for shaving. Don't leave the tap on. Don't keep leaky taps. Don't use a pipe to wash your cars. Everything you can do and you can save a lot of water. You can save up to 900 liters every day. That's great, okay? But you eat one hamburger and you have used 2,400 liters. That is the water footprint of that one hamburger. Whatever water is gone into making of that, that is equivalent to flushing the toilet for 6 months or taking a shower for 2 months. That much of water is going into that one food item. Why? Because most of our water footprint of an individual comes from the food that we eat, not so much from our household activities. We tend to focus on that. You're taking a bath, don't take a shower, use a bucket. You can save little bit water, but what most water you are consuming on this planet is coming from the food that we eat. And if you look at the water required per kg of food, you can see that meat and dairy tops the list. In fact, beef 1 kg requires so much water that one person can drink for 15 years. That much water goes into 1 kg of beef. What about food? Every day 1 billion people sleep hungry, 10,000 children die of starvation. And you know what is done? Only 48% of the world's cereal is fed to humans. 41% is fed to animals. So we feed the animals in order to eat the animal. And 98% goes waste. If you feed 100 beans to a cow and somebody eats beef, only 2% of that is reaching the human stomach. And that is true for all animal products. See the amount of wastage that is happening. The energy that is wasted because of this byproduct. Instead of consuming directly that energy, you are passing it through animals and you are wasting a lot of energy of this planet. Even proteins. We think that they are very high protein density products. But if you directly consume, you are saving so much of energy and proteins. And these animals create waste on this planet. Okay? How much waste? It is 130 times more waste than what humans produce, and without having any treatment facilities. In fact, they produce 400 billion kgs every year, which is 40,000 kgs of excrement produced per second on this planet. And it is all dumped into the oceans. No wonder we are having these dead zones which are spreading across from all coastal areas. These are zones where no marine life can survive. Anybody knows what this image is of? What does it look like? Sorry? Yeah, it's plastic waste. This is known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Okay, this is what happens is because of the oceanic currents, all the plastic which is dumped into the seas and oceans gets accumulated in certain areas. Now there are 5 such patches in Pacific Ocean. This is the largest. You know the size of this single patch? It is more than half the size of India. And what we don't know is that 80% of the plastic here is fishing gear, which is dumped after it has become useless. This is known as ghost gear. This is the most deadly form of marine plastic debris because it impacts 50% of seabirds, 66% marine mammals, and 100% of sea turtles. We kill 3 trillion fish every year. Now these numbers, don't mean much. How much is 3 trillion? A lot of zeros. But after a while, our mind cannot comprehend these numbers. Okay? So let me ask you, if you start counting from 1 to 3 trillion, how much time do you think it will take you? Start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You start counting. How much time do you think it will take you, roughly? 30, 40 years. Yes, anybody, any other guesses? No guesses? It will take you 100,000 years. That itself is a big number to comprehend. That's 1,400 of your lifetimes. If all you do since you're born till you die is just count fish, then you will have to be reborn 1,400 times to complete the counting. Suppose you start walking, how long do you think you can go with 3 trillion steps around the earth? 50,000 trips around the earth you can make. Forget the earth, you can go make 3,000 trips to the moon and come back. Forget the moon, you can go 8 times to the sun and come back. That is the magnitude of this number. We just write 3 trillion, it doesn't mean much to us, but that is how much it is, and that many fish we are killing every year. No wonder 90% of the world's marine fish stocks are now fully exploited or overexploited. And it is predicted by 2048, our oceans will become fishless. Animal agriculture is the biggest cause of ocean dead zones, water pollution, and species extinction. This was discussed, right? That India has 29% vegetarian population. Does that mean are we okay? But if you see, India is the #1 producer of dairy. Okay, 24% of world's milk, that 1/4 of world's milk is produced in India. India has 1/3 of the world's cattle. Okay, and if you look at the species that produce the most number of greenhouse gases, cattle are the biggest culprit. But milk, isn't it the best food? Well, apart from causing, being linked to cancers, fractures, type 1 diabetes, acne, CVD, indigestion, and a lot of other things, which again I am not going to discuss. We are again going to think outside the box, and I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Who gives milk? Isn't it? No. A mother gives milk. We have been taught in our childhood, in our textbooks, cow gives milk, sheep gives wool. No, a mother gives milk. Okay? A cow does not give milk all her life. It took me a few years after MBBS to understand this simple concept. It is only after a cow gives birth to a baby that she gives milk, like any other mammal. So who is this milk meant for? Isn't this is how it is supposed to be in nature, right? This is what it's supposed to be, but what we do? We separate the two, obviously, because, and what we are made to believe is that our entire species is dependent on the cow milk for our survival. Okay? In fact, the most unnatural creation of humans is drinking milk, according to me. Because there are over 6,000 species of mammals on this planet. Humans are the only ones who drink milk as adults. Milk is a baby food, it's an infant food. But yet, as adults, and we keep saying, "Doodh pita bachcha hai kya?" But we drink milk in huge amounts. And that too of another species, not even of our own species. Why is this so? This is marketing. Okay, you won't believe in the 1950s, doctors used to promote smoking. Now it sounds a little ridiculous, but it used to be that. And not only that, they used to claim that if you smoke, you will have a slimmer figure and you will be thinner. So these were the kind of marketing things that are done at that time. Now it looks ridiculous because now the evidence is out. Today, the meat and dairy industry are doing the same things. And slowly the evidence is coming. 50 years from now, people would be laughing at us saying, "Arey, kya log karte the?" Because it is possible to survive on milk in times of adversity, which our ancestors used to do. We have come to believe that it is impossible to survive without milk on a day-to-day basis. That is what we have come to believe now. That somebody says, "Arey, doodh mat piyo," to everybody is shocked, ki bhai, kaise jiyenge without milk? That is what. And if you look environmentally wise also, dairy milk has the worst impact on the planet. If you compare it with soy, for example, it has 3 times more emissions, 10 times more pollution, it requires 13 times more land and requires 22 times more water. COVID came, right? What did we say? Sab China ke wajah se. That is what we said. But if you look at all the pandemics and epidemics in the past, they have all been linked to animal farming. They've all come from animals. Why? Why is that so? Because we crowd millions of these animals together. Okay? We raise them in filthy conditions. Nobody is going to go and clean up after them. And we pump them with antibiotics. As doctors, we are taught use antibiotics judiciously because otherwise they will lead to resistance. But what we don't know is that 80% of all antibiotics on this planet are used in animals. Humans use only 20%. So and that is all unregulated. So what happens is in these animals, the resistant bugs are developed. Okay, and then they get transmitted into humans and we get what are known as zoonotic diseases. In fact, 75% of emerging infectious diseases now originate in animals. And we are basically waiting for the next pandemic to strike us, which is probably going to be worse than COVID. And if you look into the future a bit, okay, you know that the Earth's surface is 29% land and 71% is water. Out of this, 76% is habitable land, where we can survive. Others is all glaciers and deserts and things like that. Now, out of this, 45% of land is used for agriculture. Okay? And from this, 80% is for animal agriculture. Only 16% is for plant agriculture, which would have been still fine if it was giving us that much output. The problem is that, and as an example, let me just tell you, that if you consider all the infrastructure that humans have built, all the buildings and roads and cities and towns, and put them together, that constitutes just 1% of the land. 80% of this 45% of agriculture land is for animal agriculture, and from this, that's 27% of the total land mass, we are getting only 17% of the global calories. See the unequal distribution. From 16% of plant agriculture, we are providing 83% of the calories, and 80% of the land is only providing 17%. And what is happening is the meat production is increasing. Meat and milk demand is likely to double by 2050. So if you just assume that instead of 17%, now we require, say, 34% of calories, double the amount, from animal agriculture, look at the amount of land that is going to be required. We'll have to destroy all the forests for that to happen. 84% of habitable land would have to be used for agriculture. And that will lead to territory wars because there isn't any land left. This was a paper recently published in Jan 24, which said that current diet will cause increase in malnutrition, increase in obesity, and definitely lead to global warming. But it also studied that a diet change can eradicate malnutrition, can reverse obesity rates, and stop global warming. And what was the diet change that they recommended? Universal increase in the consumption of whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts, less consumption of ultra-processed foods, and animal source foods consumption significantly reducing, which is basically a whole food plant-based diet. See, we have to understand that these dietary guidelines are made under a lot of pressure from the industries. They cannot say, okay, stop eating meat from now. The best that they can do is, thoda kam karo, thoda kam karo, thoda kam karo. That is what it can. But anything which we know has to be reduced means it's not good for us. Only then they will say, ke kam karo. So that we have to understand where it is coming from. So to summarize, if you look at the animal agriculture and what it is doing to us, it is causing ocean damage, deforestation, species loss. It is responsible for greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. It is responsible for air pollution and water pollution. It is responsible for food shortage, land shortage, water shortage, besides causing pandemics and land wars, and also responsible for malnutrition, premature deaths, and obesity. Imagine this, one single industry causing all this, and everybody knows about this. It is there, and this is a fact. Okay? So if we wish not to diet, we must choose the right diet, right? And we may keep debating, okay, what is good for an individual, koi plant-based, but there is absolutely no debate on which diet is better for the planet, better for the earthlings, for our children, for our species, for our survival. As a species, we have to shift to a plant-based diet. Because on a plant-based diet, a single person in a single day can save lives, can save food, can save climates, can save forests, can save water, and can improve our own health. United Nations has said that diet change is the single biggest way to reduce our impact on the environment. It is far bigger than buying electric cars or reducing your flight time. Okay? So what if the world actually shifts to a plant-based diet? Going back to the same example, we don't require these 17% of calories coming from there. That is the only amount of extra land that will be required. And all this land will be freed. This land freed is equivalent to the entire North and South American continents for the forests to regrow. I have been on a plant-based diet for 5 years. So going by the same calculations, the amount of water I have saved is enough for 10,000 people to drink for a year. The grains I have saved is enough to feed 200 people for a year. The forests that have been saved equivalent to the size of 20 tennis courts. The emissions that I have saved is equivalent to a car driven for 1,25,000 kilometers. I've saved over 400 animal lives and probably added a few months to my own life. Okay? This is not about me. I'm saying this is the power of a single person. I'm saying that each one has the ability to make this contribution. We think, "Arey, main akele kya kar sakta hu?" No, each one has this power. It's very easy. You just have to understand that it is possible. And I've had some other personal benefits as well. Okay, so I've improved my own health. I didn't have any disease, but everything was on the borderline high, which is very much in the green zone now. And I've been able to do things which previously I was not able to do. But don't go by me. There are top athletes who are following plant-based diet and thriving and doing excellently well. There are vegan bodybuilders who can build this. And I would like to introduce you to Dr. Ashwath, who is very much present here. He himself is a pure plant-based bodybuilder himself, having won silver medals for our country. And I think he's going to speak as well. But let me give a disclaimer. Muscles are built in the gym, not in the kitchen. So do not think that just by eating a plant-based diet you are going to be, no, you will have to do your work. See, my point is not that if you eat you will be absolutely fine. My point, it is no way inferior to any other diet. So people ask, where do you get your proteins? Plants. Okay, plants have proteins. Okay, there is no doubt about it. The bigger question is, where do you get your fiber from? Animal products have zero fiber in them. Okay, and 95% of Americans are deficient in fiber. Nobody talks about it. And is protein all good? Not necessary. Studies have shown it has linked high protein intake to a lot of diseases, but all said and done, there is no scientific basis to increase the protein consumption beyond the recommended allowance. Recommended is 0.8, and why it is 0.8 is a separate thing altogether, but let's not go into that. In all stages of life, excess protein intake does have other side effects, especially if the protein is from animal sources. Okay? Which I would like to touch upon something known as mTOR pathway. It is the mammalian target of rapamycin. This is a pathway which is now coming up more and more in the news. I'll try to keep it very simple. It's a pathway in our body, which is based on protein kinase. If the mTOR activity in our body increases, it causes cell growth and proliferation. Okay? And that leads to diseases like cancer. On the other hand, if mTOR activity in our body decreases, the body goes into a repair and maintenance mode. What it does is, whatever resources it has, it uses, and damaged organelles are destroyed and new are formed. This is known as autophagy. Okay? This is an anti-process. This causes proliferation, means you are aging faster. More and more cells are getting formed. When you reduce the multiplication, your aging slows down. And what causes increased mTOR activity? High intake of glucose and amino acids. What reduces the mTOR activity? Low GI foods and low proteins. Okay? And this happens when you do fasting, where the body goes into a survival mode, where it reutilizes whatever sources are there in our body. And if you compare animal foods versus plant foods, animal foods we know are high in protein, they have excess of all amino acids, especially leucine, and that leads to an increased mTOR activity leading to aging. On the other hand, plant food have balanced protein. Please understand, there's a lot of misconception that plants are incomplete proteins and this and that. All plant foods have all amino acids in varying amounts. Okay? They have restricted amino acids, which in fact is probably good for us, because then we go into a survival autophagy mode where the mTOR activity is reduced, and that causes anti-aging. And these are the diseases now which have been linked to increased mTOR activity. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has clearly stated that a vegan diet, that is a plant-based diet, is nutritionally adequate, provides health benefits, it's appropriate for all stages of life, and is more environmentally sustainable. But yet, we do not want to change. Why? What could be that one reason why people are reluctant to really change? Nobody. We are addicted to all these things, and that is the biggest challenge, right? We no longer eat to live, we now live to eat. More than that, are we also willing to die to eat? Because literally we are eating our way to extinction now. So to conclude, what we are not changing, we are actually choosing. So what's on your plate? You can choose either animal foods or you can have plant-based diet. Okay? Because you always have a choice. You can choose to either hug them or hang them. You can choose to either tickle them or torture them. You can choose to either snuggle them or slaughter them. And you can choose to either kiss them or kill them. When we look at these, movies, cartoon animations, we connect with them. We love these creatures. We feel for them. We cheer for them. But when these same things, they come onto our plate, we call them with different names and we forget where our food has come from. The taste prevents us from seeing the pain of our fellow creatures. We have other food choices. They do not have another life. We have other food choices. We do not have another planet. This is all that we have. So it is time to ask ourselves this question, that does your heart agree with a diet that depends on so much cruelty? Does your mind agree to a diet that is causing our own extinction? Like someone rightly said, we are what we eat. So let us eat the rainbow, not the morgue. Let us choose wisely. Let us choose a diet that won't let us diet. Thank you so much.
सर बहुत ही अच्छा टॉपिक लेके आए आप, थैंक यू सो मच. मेरा ये सवाल है, यहाँ जो ग्रुप बैठा है सब अवेयरनेस में है, सब लोग मेडिकल फील्ड से हैं, काफ़ी साइंस को पढ़ा है. हम लोग फूड के बारे में, न्यूट्रिशन के बारे में सोच रहे हैं. सो उसके अलावा भी हम डेली रूटीन में सुबह उठते हैं तब से लेके रात को जब सोते हैं तब तक जो भी एक्टिविटी कर रहे हैं, हमारी जो हमारा ब्रेन वॉशिंग किया गया है, हमारे जो माइंड को बनाया गया है कि ये चीज़ यूज़ करो तो ये होगा वरना आप बीमार पड़ जाओगे, ऐसी जो बहुत सारी चीज़ें हमारे ऊपर थोपी गई है, उसके सॉल्यूशंस लाने का टाइम है अभी कि हम लोग इस डर में से बाहर आएंगे. टूथपेस्ट यूज़ हर कोई जानता है टूथपेस्ट नहीं अच्छा है, फिर भी सब लोग यूज़ कर रहे हैं, इवन डॉक्टर्स भी यूज़ कर रहे हैं. तो जहाँ हम जिस अर्थ प्लैनेट पे रह रहे हैं उसके जो रूल्स है, अगर आप कहीं भी जाते हो तो वहाँ के रूल आपको फॉलो करने पड़ते हैं, तभी आप पीसफुली जी सकते हो. तो जिस अर्थ प्लैनेट पे हम रह रहे हैं उसके जो रूल्स है, हर एक चीज़ डिग्रेडेबल है, हर एक चीज़ का हमारा बॉडी भी है वो भी पूरा का पूरा डिग्रेड हो जाता है. कुदरत ने जो भी बनाया वो सारी चीज़ें फॉर्म चेंज कर देती है, राइट. बट हम लोग जो चीज़ें इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं वो ऐसी चीज़ें इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं जो अर्थ प्लैनेट पे बोझ बन रहा है, कचरा बन रहा है, और उसी को एक डर की वजह से कैरी कर रहे हैं कि अगर हम ये इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे तो दूसरा क्या है हमारे पास. तो अभी टाइम आ चुका है कि उसके सॉल्यूशंस पे काम करें. प्रॉब्लम्स आपने बहुत अच्छे से बताए ताकि लोगों में अवेयरनेस आए, और बहुत ही अच्छी रिसर्च आपने की है. एंड जस्ट हेड्स ऑफ यू.
थैंक यू सो मच. आप जो बोल रहे हैं वो सही बोल रहे हैं. इट इज़ पार्ट ऑफ व्हाट इज़ नोन एज मिनिमलिज्म.
यस,
कि हम लोग बहुत चीज़ें कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं ज़्यादा. एंड ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज़ नॉट part of this current forum, but that is a topic in itself कि कैसे हम लोग exploit कर रहे हैं सारे resources. but बाकी सब चीज़ एक जगह, और एक जगह ये चीज़ है कि हम जो खाना खा रहे हैं we are diverting it through the animals. और जैसे मैंने बताया हम लोग 8 बिलियन है, वो 80 बिलियन हम लोग उनको मार रहे हैं, which is not near, because हम लोग डायरेक्ट वही पौधे अगर हम खाते हैं जो उनको खिला के फिर हम खा रहे हो तो उसमें बहुत एनर्जी, प्रोटीन सब प्रिजर्व रहेगा. अपने पास इतना खाना है कि हम जो भूखे लोग हैं उनको 3 गुना खाना अपने पास उनको दे सकते हैं, बट वही खाना हम जानवरों को खिला रहे हैं. और इनफैक्ट ये जो जहाँ कंट्रीज है जहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा स्टार्विंग चिल्ड्रन है अफ्रीका वगैरह में, वहाँ पे खाना बनता है वो जानवरों को दिया जाता है और जानवर एक्सपोर्ट किए जाते हैं टू मोर एफ्लुएंट कंट्रीज। ये नहीं कि उनके बच्चों को खाना खिलाएं, वो नहीं होता है। तो ये पूरा अभी जो चेंज हुआ है, स्लोली स्लोली अवेयरनेस आएगा, वैसे लोग भी चेंज होते जाएंगे।
ये भी सर आप जो कह रहे हो, ये सारी चीज़ें डर के मारे ही हो रही है ना। अगर हम ये फूड नहीं खाएंगे नॉन वेज, तो हमारे मतलब जो लोग भी खा रहे हैं, मैं उनकी बात कर रही हूँ, उनके दिमाग में क्या है कि अगर मैंने ये प्रोटीन डाइट नहीं लिया तो मैं बीमार हो जाऊंगा या मेरी
ये डर इंडस्ट्री पैदा कर रही है,
बट हम भी हैं उसमें से बाहर आ सकते हैं।
नहीं, मैं खुद खाता था, मैं नॉनवेज वगैरह सब खा चुका हूँ, और तभी मैं भी अपने आप को यही चीजें बताता था। आई यूज्ड टू फाइंड रीजंस टू कन्विंस माई सेल्फ कि मैं क्यों खाना चाहिए। मैं सोचता था मैं अगर नहीं खाऊंगा तो बेचारे जानवरों का क्या होगा, वो तो ऐसे ही, उनका कौन देखभाल करेगा। ये सब चीजें मैंने भी अपने आप को बताई है, सो आई कैन कंटिन्यू टू एंजॉय द टेस्ट।
मैंने
बात टेस्ट की आती है मेरे हिसाब से।
हाँ, बहुत सारी चीज़ों को ट्राई किया है, मेरी बॉडी पे खुद एक्सपेरिमेंट किया है, नेचुरोपैथी है, और बहुत सारे एक्सपेरिमेंट्स करने के बाद मुझे जो अनुभूति हुई है, मैं आज शेयर करना चाहूँगी इस फ्रेटर्निटी के सामने, कि हम वो फूड खा रहे हैं जो हमारे लिए नहीं बना है। अगर हम किसी भी एनिमल को देखें, मैंने मंकीज़ को ऑब्जर्व किया है कि वो भी कैरेट खाता है ना तो बीच का पार्ट छोड़ देता है। जब बहुत सारी पत्तियां हैं, उसमें अगर शीशम की पत्ती है तो वो वही खाता है, अगर पपाये की पत्ती है तो वही खाता है, बहुत सारी और टेस्टी पत्तियां उसको छोड़ देता है। आप बर्ड्स को देखोगे तो हर एक बर्ड कुछ ही दाने खाते हैं, वो हर एक ग्रेन नहीं खाते। सो उनके लिए जो बना है वो वही खाते हैं। बट एज ए हम लोग यहाँ इस प्लैनेट पे सबसे जूनियर है, लेटेस्ट वर्जन है मोबाइल का कह सकते हैं वैसे, फिर भी हम लोग ऐसा फूड खा रहे हैं जो हमारे लिए नहीं बना है, और वही कारण है हमारे अंदर विकार आने का।
हाँ, वही मतलब बेसिकली हम अपना खाना खुद बनाने जा रहे हैं, तो उसमें हम जो चाहिए हमें वो डाल रहे हैं, तो वो जितना हम रूट पे जाएंगे वहाँ पे बेटर रहेगा। थैंक यू सो मच। कैन वी पैनल डिस्कशन?